Really, Krett? Really, Krett? Oh my god.
What's up, guys? My name is Krett. Today I am joined by Hi-Rez ClumzyDeath from the production boys, and he's going to be filling in for F-Dot, who unfortunately has been tied down and tortured by Comcast, so he will not be able to attend. How you doing, my friend Clumzy?
I am doing extremely well. How are you doing, Krett?
You know, I'm chillin', just enjoying another day of not being with F-Dot. So really, it's a good time. How's your week been? Are you excited for Medusa?
Have you played her? Did you see the match of the day yesterday? It was Medusas in Arena, just all the Medusas. It was just ultimate.
Yeah, I saw that.
So much acid spray. Oh my god.
I totally haven't played her. I did a jungle practice. I killed Robot a few times. I was like, yeah, this guy's pretty good, and then I didn't play her. That's my testing process. It's a process.
All right, no, fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean,
so,
I didn't get to play Conquest either, but we'll get there.
one day. Yeah, I mean, Medusa's an interesting character, so I guess let's just start with that. So you're formerly a mid player, but mid players get killed by hunters a lot, so I think you still have some sort of perspective. One of the few hunters that really has, like, a team fighting ultimate. Right? Like, you've got Cupid with the AoE and the stun, and you've got Hui with the dropping of the suns. Old Apollo's ultimate I'd throw in there, because it's got, like, the targeted damage and the knockback. But past that, there aren't too many hunters that really bring that, like, AoE wallop that's really a team fight ultimate.
You have Tusky coming out, but that's not exactly an AoE. It's targeting different.
It's sort of weird,
one after one, so that's still kind of more.
If
of a
Tusky is in a good move, it's a team fight ultimate. If Tusky's in a bad mood, it doesn't do anything.
Which is going to be interesting because if you've also played on the PTS, you've seen the changes. You can see that Tusky now is a targeter mechanism, where it's still an AoE ultimate, but you actually get to choose which person the Tusky is going to go on first, which is nice.
Yeah. So let's just talk about our abilities, and let's go through it backwards. But I think backwards is a good direction if you're talking about ramping up to what's OP.
Okay.
The ultimates, it's a stun, it has high damage and high scaling, it's got a wind-up, so that's a little bit of weakness. It's not the widest thing in the game, like it's not as wide as, say, a Ymir ultimate, or a Ymir freeze. Yeah, so it's kind of like a narrow cone. But the damage is really high, and if people are facing you, they get stunned, which is really good. So it seems like more like follow-up CC, which is fine for a hunter, though it is a little short range as well.
The range isn't too bad, but like you said, the cone is definitely probably the issue. It's obviously not going to be a 180-degree kind of spell. But when you do get the stun, you know, the damage is real. If you get the slow off, it's decent for chasing, but you're obviously going to want to use it in conjunction with other CC. So as soon as people saw Medusa coming out, they saw, like, they were just immediately, Chad was just like, Athena, exactly, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Athena taunt, if you guys are both together, you're going to be facing all those enemies looking right at you, and bam, Stone Gaze, the mask comes off, and that's a hell lot of damage in CC. But without any follow-up CC, or without any initial CC, to lock down, it might be pretty hard.
Yeah, yeah, so it's really like, it's not an ultimate that you can expect to be hugely effective without the follow-up, right? Or without the setup for it. But
exactly.
Athena, or Ymir, or Hades, something like that, you could really make stuff happen, and it also could definitely be good in Hunter vs. Hunter duels later in the game. But at the same time, because of the wind-up, like, it's sort of questionable, right? Like, you go to use it in Hunter vs. Hunter, you wind up and use it, they beads, and they crit you twice, and you're just like, well, that's more damage than my ultimate does.
Exactly. I mean, we had that same issue with Hui, with the animation. I mean, once you're casting your ultimate, it's really great for an AoE ultimate in team fights, but if you're just boxing with someone, you don't have the time to spare to use the animation, that 1 full second of locking yourself down, where you're just going to get crit.
Right, you have to think about it. So, and now there's definitely uses for it, I think. Like, if someone, like, dashes in on you or jumps in on you, like, say, a Cupid dashing in, that's a great time to use your Hou-Yi ultimate, and it's probably a great time to use your Medusa ultimate as well, because you're not really going to hit a Cupid when he's dashing. Like, you might get one auto attack, but it gives you time to set up this ultimate and say, hey, this is the place where you don't want to fight. But, you know, I think we've covered the ultimate well. The 3 is an interesting ability. It is both really good and really bad. It's good because it's a dash that offers mobility. Mobility's nice. It's pretty fast. It seems decent in that regard. But it's, and it has a healing debuff, which is cool, and like a mini stun. So, like, it can help you confirm some kills, which I could definitely see being useful. But the downsides, the dash itself is not super fast. It's interruptible, and you can catch it, just like Mercury. And catching her dash is going to get a lot of Medusas killed.
I mean, the one thing that I just have to realize is that a lot of these hunters are coming out with some sort of dash or escape mechanism. So for Medusa to come into play without anything like that, you know, it's not obviously going to be the easiest thing.
With a weaker one,
With a weaker one, exactly. So, I mean, why would you not want to just choose a hunter with a better escape if you're going to choose an escape at all? I mean, we have Amuz and Cobb, who people love to play with no escape mechanism, which is why he's barely used at all. So coming with this Medusa, could be really strong. We've already mentioned that the ultimate is a little bit off-putting, and now a dash that's not exactly phenomenal either. I mean, it's good. The healing debuff is pretty damn strong. So
potentially useful,
boxing power, she can do a lot against other hunters with lifesteal, and I'm pretty sure every hunter gets lifesteal nowadays. So mid-game, that might help, but late game, when it's 2 autos to kill someone, maybe not so much.
Yeah, for sure. Alright, her second ability. This is sort of her clear. It had an attack speed reduction that was since removed because it was too strong, and it does less damage now. But it seems like it's just sort of like, this is a clear ability, and it's doesn't feel like it's like top tier clear, but it sort of like gets the job done. It's like better than clear. Apollo. Better than Apollo.
Yeah.
Maybe like Cupid or Artemis level.
I mean, it's a line, but in your mind you think, okay, it's line ability like an on her spear, it's going to go through, it's going to impale, it's going to pierce. But no, it's actually going to hit the first target and then spread in a cone. And that cone is decent. It's enough to hit the rest of the creeps as long as they're clustered up a little bit. So obviously, supporting gods like Sylvanas that can bunch them up a little bit will help. Ares is even. But at the same time, if you're not in the optimal position, you're not going to be hitting all the creeps. But the good thing is that cone is large enough where you can hit the other players. You can hit the other gods decently effective. But without the attack speed reduction, I don't know how much that's going to help later on in the game.
Yeah, maybe just for like poke. And Epandere, while it was a very high base value, it got reduced with patches, so it's a little bit lower now, and I don't think it quite kills Soul Wave. I think it leaves them with like a little bit of health left, sort of like Ullr's one. So it's decent, but yeah,
it's decent, but it's also the projectile isn't the fastest. So when you're fighting 1-on-1, or you're fighting 1-on-2, 2-on-2, and you're trying to hit the enemy god, you're trying to get that damage in, you might easily miss that. I feel like it's a slower heart bomb in a way, the projectile.
Yeah, really more for like the Xbalanque effect of like, oh, you're standing behind something, well, I'm gonna hit you anyway, and probably kill what you're standing behind because it is enough damage to like kill a minion or whatever. But her one is really what the kit is about. It's a super cool ability, and it's also really powerful.
Oh, absolutely. 100% attack speed that overcaps the 2.5.
It doesn't overcap. It actually does not.
They changed that? Okay.
Yeah, like, you go into jungle practice, and you buy 2.5 attack speed, and you hold down left click, then you press 1, and the attacks come out at the same speed. Like, it doesn't overcap. I've tested that. That's not true.
Which makes it a little bit more fair, at least.
But the poison. Let's just start with the poison. So you fire 3 attacks, they afflict a DOT. It lasts 1.5 seconds, so it's like... It's technically a DOT, but it's so quick that, like, it might as well be instant damage, right? Like,
yeah.
You're gonna finish the dot. It stacks up, like, there's no clipping, like, it might as well just be instant damage. And it hits pretty hard. I believe they're nerfing it, so there's gonna be 15% scaling per tick.
Yeah,
but there's 3 ticks, and you apply 3 dots, so that's 15% scaling 9 times.
True. It's damaging, and especially, I mean, the setup you can do if you're trying to chase someone or get someone down, you dash into them, you stun lock them for a millisecond or so, and then you get all 3 attacks straight into their face with a Viper Strike. It's really hard to miss, and then right after that you can try and get your poison off, but the fact is the 3 and the 1
You
combo.
said 3 attacks, and this is another interesting point that I want to make. I made a YouTube video about this today.
Yep.
So Apollo's been in the game forever, and Audacity is you're actually drinking milk. Audacity, his passive, is... Have you noticed that Audacity is actually a 6 auto attack speed boost?
Okay.
Like, think about it. You go bam, 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 that's 5, and then he just sort of fires a 6 auto attack faster because
of
the
the
5th
progression in a way.
Yeah, well, it's more like when you have attack speed and you fire an auto attack, then it goes on cooldown, and the cooldown after the 5th attack is the higher attack speed value rather than the lower attack speed value.
True.
So you're getting the effect for 6 attacks. It's a 6 attack burst.
I mean, in a similar fashion, can you use your auto attack as Medusa, and then as soon as you hit the auto attack with the projectile, start using your 1, so it goes like bam, 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 bam. So
yes, you can.
Shots.
So it's actually 5. So what it is...
5 shots.
It's 5 shots.
Only
so
3
what
that
it
apply
is,
the dot and the damage, though.
Right, only the middle 3 apply the dot. So you left click and then press 1. So you fire an auto attack, you press 1 to apply your steroid, that speeds up your attack speed, and for whatever reason, your next attack comes out a little bit quicker. It's like canceling or something, but maybe it's just attack speed, who knows. So you fire an auto, you press 1, your next auto comes out faster. That's your first Viper, your second Viper, your third Viper, and then after the third Viper, that attack speed value carries through, and the 5th auto attack hits at the accelerated pace as well.
Okay.
So if you want to test this for yourself, I have a YouTube video. There's 2 ways you can test it. First of all, go into a jungle practice. At level 1 is the easiest way to do it, because you can see the attack speed at that level. Because, like, you go from firing 1 attack per second to firing 2 attacks per second. It's pretty noticeable. And just do left click 1, hold, and fire 5 auto attacks total, and you can just sort of see, like, the difference in the speed. Or you can check out my YouTube video. If you really want to, you can download it and, like, count the frames with some sort of program. That's how I tested to make sure it's real. Like, that's how I tested to make sure it's real, right? Before I put it on YouTube, I put it into Avidemux, or however you pronounce that, and I was like, yes, these auto attacks are actually coming out faster. I believe that's Bagel with the YouTube link. Yes, it is Bagel the God.
Oh, there you go. Props
yeah, there you go.
And thank you very much, my head.
Yeah, so it's a 5 auto attack burst. That means 2 things. 1, it means, let's say an Athena taunts for you, right? Or someone CC'd for whatever reason. You can just do left click 1, hold, and fire 5 auto attacks real fast. It's basically Apollo's Audacity whenever you want it, with a dot. A really good dot. You
can also hold it infinitely, I believe. So you can have that 1 up just whenever you feel like you're full up on mana, and then you'll just have it available for you. I mean, it does not start the cooldown, I don't think, though.
Yeah, it probably doesn't start the cooldown, but it probably uses the mana cost, so you could just
use the mana cost, but then like the duration of the Viper Strike will just be hovering around you for as long as you want it to be. It doesn't wear
Probably
off
the
after
kind
time.
of thing that you'd use at level 1, right? Like, you press 1, then you leave the base, walk over to the camp, and then, like, use it just to save mana or something.
Yeah, but even then, I'm not sure. With Bluestone Pendant, I'm not sure if that's really going to be the necessary way of doing it.
Yeah, I mean,
will the 2 do more damage, or the 1?
not a big deal. The 1 should do more damage. Dots are OP.
Yeah.
But the other thing to think about, right? I said it fires 5 auto attacks, right? You're getting 5 auto attacks at a 100% speed boost. Now, the second highest attack speed steroid in the game is Artemis. It's 70%. This is 100. We're not counting Apollo because you can't really control that. So
Yeah.
Artemis was 70%. She also has crit steroid, but whatever. Pretty much late game, pretty much every hunter kills in 5 auto attacks. Some kill in 4,
Okay.
but that's rare. Most of them kill in 5. And that means
Krett's
that...
done the math. You can believe this.
Yeah, I have. I can't show you because... Well, I could show you, but I'm not going to. Done the math. Every hunter kills another hunter in 5 auto attacks, which means that Medusa has the fastest time to kill in the game.
Okay. Assuming that all 5 auto attacks, hit
Well,
the target.
yeah, I mean, but that's like... This is theory crafting between hunters,
Yeah,
so we're
absolutely.
assuming
So-
that they're hitting.
I mean, we're
Basically,
assuming
like,
that, yeah, any
if both
targets are
hunters
hitting,
stand
they're
still, start auto-attacking and activate their steroids at the same time, and Medusa does the 5 auto-attack cancel, she kills everyone first.
Yeah, okay. I
Unless,
see
like,
that.
there's weird crit shenanigans, maybe with some sort of, like, threshold, right? Like, on her with his pillar and, like, the right damage item, like a crusher or something, so he gets true damage after his enfeeble, and then, like, he crits in the right spots. But, like, outside of weird
Generally.
bullshit, Medusa should kill everyone first.
Okay.
Which is really
I see that.
scary. So, you have a character with a team fight ult that's, like, pretty good. Yeah, Bagel, that's including lifesteal. Pretty much.
Just
Like,
that-
there's
that's
some
fully stacked.
weird, outstanding crit situations that can happen, but basically, yeah, it's a 5-shot kill. So, you have a hunter with a team fight ultimate that's, like, pretty good. Not the best, but pretty good. She's got a dash that's better than Ho Yi's, because that dash is garbage.
I mean,
But
got
it's
that
not the
AoE effect
best.
at the end, right? I mean,
It does have
makes
that
up for it.
knock-up. It's really good if
So
you're
good.
chasing someone. If you're running away, you're screwed. And have you ever played a Wheelix versus Ho Yi?
Ooh, no.
It's the
I-
dream,
I-
because he's just floating up there for a year, and you're just like, pluck. You.
It's
Freedom.
just like, you are mine. Whenever I want it to be, you.
Yeah,
are mine.
whenever. It's so easy. Yeah, so her dash, like, not that great. Her 2, good, clear, probably not the best. But her 1, her steroid's just fucking amazing. So,
Yeah,
could be a
that
really
definitely
strong
helps pull up
hunter.
the kid a little bit.
yeah, it's sort of like, if she doesn't feed, she'll probably be really good, but she might feed. Like, she might just be a character that dies a lot.
Yeah, it's just kind of, you want to shut down her early game, and then what's she gonna do? Like, she's gonna have a long time, and you just win in the mid game before she can ever get back up
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah. So that's sort of our thoughts on Medusa.
Hey, but she looks really cool,
She does look
She's
really
got
cool.
some sort of, like, snake bra thing, but other than that,
Oh
she
man,
just
and
looks
like
a
the
huge
mask
creature.
that actually gets taken
mask.
off is really cool.
So fantastic. I remember when we were showing that off during the God reveal video.
Oh,
with
yeah.
the stream. Yeah, I was backing, and then you just see right up close from her face. She just uplifts her mask a little bit. You see her mouth. It's epic.
It's really cool, yeah. Yeah, where the mouth and it's all creepy. Oh god. Let's jump into the EU side of things for the SPL.
Okay.
Let's just jump right into it. First match of the week was Trig versus London Conspiracy. And honestly, I think this is kind of what everyone expected coming out from this matchup. It was a 2-1 in favor of Trig. Zalia played Nemesis solo twice, and he won one game on it. The second game, he
Not
lost.
so much.
And then the third
But
game,
that
he just
third
like
game though.
he just
that
played
third
Vamana.
game was ridiculous.
he's like, oh, well, if I can't play Nemesis, I'll just
You
play
know what?
Vamana because I've been playing Vamana forever.
And what was interesting is that in the first 2 games where he did get Nemesis, Bakasura was still on the board, but he's like, you know what? There's no need. I can do other things. Everyone knows me for my Bakasura. We're gonna be Nemesis. We're gonna go 6-0-11, no deaths, and destroy a tier.
Yeah, Snakeskin had trouble with that, but the second game, and I like this adaptation, he was like, well, I'll just play Kronos, because generally an assassin solo would be really good at punishing a Kronos, like Bakasura or Hunbots would just sort of kill him, but Nemesis wasn't really, like, Xaylia wasn't really set up for it. He couldn't get the kills he needed, and Snakeskin just sort of became a carry. Meanwhile, unfortunately, Cuvo Fred sort of fed in the jungle.
I mean, he set up a lot of cool things as Ymir in the jungle, and I like seeing it. I've seen Cuvo Fred do Ymir, and do Ymir very well.
Yeah, he played Ymir very good against, I believe, Fnatic last week.
Oh, and I think that was the game where he bought Power Pot to start off, and then died first blood. And that's just a miserable way to start off a game.
Yeah, it's not how you want to start a game. I believe Lassus is actually pretty familiar with how that goes. But I love the adjustment to Nemesis solo, because I think while it's something that Xaylia is really good at, I don't think it's like this godsend to solo lane. Like, I don't think it's particularly better than Bakasura, who seems to be the benchmark for solo lane. So it's definitely a counter to Bakasura, at least the way Xaylia is playing it.
It's just interesting to see all these new assassins coming into the solo lane. These new solo lane in general that you assume would be junglers first. I mean, if you had a Nemesis before, if you had a Hunbats before, you'd always be like, okay, they're going to be in the jungle. But now you're seeing them more in the solo lane. I like this change. I like this trial and error.
Yeah, so I love the adjustment. Nox in the solo lane, though. So Nox recently got
Nox in general, though.
Nox in general, though. Let's talk about that. Nox is a character that, on paper, actually looks pretty good.
Yep,
She's got that survivability. Percent damage reduction is really good. Like, she can reduce a Scylla ultimate to, like, 80 damage and not give a shit.
At all.
Yeah, at all. She's got good poke. She's got a silence that's 2 seconds at all levels. Her early game's really good. Her ultimate is like a sort of fake silence, right? Like, it punishes you for casting and can do pretty cool damage, and it's AoE. The problem is then you play her, and she doesn't do enough damage.
Yeah.
You just sort of, like, don't kill people.
You can do things in the early to middle game. You can pressure your opponents. But really, it's just for me, she doesn't feel as logical as before. I mean, more so than her not doing as much damage. I'm really not fond of her ultimate change. I don't like that 1 second channel. It doesn't feel intuitive to me. I start casting it, and then I'm just like, shit, when's it going to go off again?
I agree, but with the CC immunity, I can't call it bad, right?
No, you're right. They gave her the CC immunity. They pulled
and now it's just like, it's basically Janus ult. Like, it doesn't feel like it should wind up, because Janus ult feels like there's a reason it should wind up. Like, it's a Kamehameha.
There's a really good sound effect to it, too. Like,
that's true.
But with Nox, it's just like, it starts casting, when's it going to go off? The one thing that I want to draw similarly to is that Medusa, with her cast on her ultimate, you actually see a circular effect in front of her, and it closes in, and once it closes in, that's when the ultimate comes out. But for Nox, it's just like, all right, I think now I'm just going to keep on aiming at you. Oh, no.
And then, like, this little turd slithers out and hits people. It's like, it could look so much cooler, right? Like, think of some anime bullshit where, like, all of the shadows from the world around just start flowing into her or something, right? Like, you could make this look really cool, but because I don't think it was intended to be cast, like, it just sort of...
Exactly. I don't know if they even have an animation, like, properly for that.
There's, like, a little bit. Divios, I'm not familiar with targeters disappearing, but I play on instant cast. So, can you explain a little bit more about that, just at least for my sake? Like I said, I play on instant cast, so
Oh, I see what you mean.
I never have targeters.
The line targeter that you would usually have is that once you cast it, once you start the animation, you no longer see that line.
It just vanishes? That's hilarious. That sucks. But it's like... Honestly, even hitting the ultimate, if you don't get, like, the 3-man ult of Destiny, it doesn't feel impactful enough.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. She's got that really good poke, and she's got the good damage early to mid-game. Yeah, she can stack up and be kind of more of a utility god. You know, she can go sash. She could be kind of like a Zhong Kui, where she's there for disruption. She's in your face. But at the same time, why would you not just go Zhong Kui and have your ghost pulsing AoEing on everybody? While you can stun them and you can get lifesteal back.
Well, and even then, like, she's great at poke, but her poke isn't high damage like Agni's is. Like, If you poke well with an Agni Bomb, it could create an opportunity to start a fight immediately. Nox doesn't have that kind of poke, which hypothetically is fine. But sustain is in our game. And with people playing Cupid and Sylvanas and Ra, and occasionally some of the lesser picks gods like Chang'e or Guan Yu that just offer a little bit of sustain to the team.
Yeah.
Or Aphrodite when she shows up. Or just Heartward in general. Nox's poke just disappears in like 10 seconds.
Exactly.
Right? Like she pokes you and then you're like, oh, it's gone. You
brought up that Aphrodite. Was that this last weekend? I just remember Confree's Aphrodite being fantastic.
Yeah, I believe.
Did you remember when the Basta and the Odin leaped in for first blood to try and get her?
That was not this weekend on Confree.
That was last weekend. That was fantastic. There's a quick throwback to when she survived the double jump in. The Odin cages himself underneath the tower, and she survives with 1 HP. That was fantastic. But anyways, I digress.
Yeah, so I don't know. Nox just feels like she's in an awkward spot, and it feels like when you're playing her, you're like, well, I have these cool utility abilities, but then, like, you see something happening, like, your Athena gets a good taunt, or your Sylvanas gets a good ult, and you're like, if I were any other mage, I would have killed 3 people here.
Yeah,
and then you go back to dropping 3.
You can wait for, so you say the Athena taunt again. You have the Athena taunt, you start winding up your ultimate, you cast it, you get your 2 off maybe, and then they're all running around. Yes, you might have hit your ultimate, but if you're an Agni, if you're in a Poseidon, 3 bombs, stuns, they're all gone. Kraken, everyone's disappeared already. Why would you not want that instant burst? Even a Janus could follow up with his 2, then his 1 into his ulti, and bam, everybody's gone. Nox is sitting there like, why can't I has this?
I'm poking, I guess. Yeah. I guess the issue is that, like, she's a poking god that doesn't ever do anything else, right? She can't just, like, she can't be like Agni where he pokes and then he bursts. She just keeps poking and then eventually... Man, I don't know. Let's move on to Fnatic versus Dignitas. I think this game was a little bit more of a toss-up. In terms of who is going to win, right? It's sort of like, well, is Fnatic in good form? Because Dignitas has actually looked really good this season. Variety has been playing a variety of solo laners that are, I think, less seen across the entirety of the SPL. But... Fnatic just was sort of on form. Like, Fnatic was ready for this. They 2-0'd, and they 2-0'd quick. And maybe part of that is Zeros and Captain Twig finally adjusting to what happened with the roles.
Yeah, I mean, it was odd to see the change. And it's kind of something we're always unsure about. It's like, you know, Kiki coming to mid lane, is he going to be as good as he was in the solo lane? But not only that, not 1 change. You have 2. You have Captain Twig from that great mid lane. He was a great mid laner. I mean, that's just a fact. And now he's a pretty damn good jungler too. I'm not going to say he's any less than he was because he's doing very well. And then you have Zeros, he was a good jungler, and now he's going into mid, and he's a damn good mid too now. And just like, wow, they both have that change. I guess a similar comparison would be Lassus moving from jungle to mid and Dare to Care moving from support to jungle. Obviously, they're not swapping roles to each other's roles, but you don't always expect them to do as good as they did before. But this time with Fnatic, they're doing very well.
Definitely. You know, it's one of those role comps where you look at it and you're like, yeah, this makes sense to me, right? Zeros was the jungler that played Vulcan, and Captain Twig was the mid laner that played Shock. And it's like, well, if you switch those...
Hey, if you switch those, we actually have things in the right way.
And Reels is just back on form. Like, he straight up killed it this week, and... I think the Reels Youngbay matchup is something that's been really interesting in both Season 1 and Season 2 in the European SPL, and it feels like Reels is... They're kind of similar, but Reels just goes ham a little bit harder and a little bit sooner than Youngbay does, and I think we saw that happen in the Fnatic and Dignitas games.
And he's been picking up that Honor change as well. What do you think about that? He's played Honor both those games, and this was with the new patch, I believe, with the Impale change.
Honestly, so Onher's he's sort of an interesting hunter because he just kind of does everything, right? Like, Onher has good line pressure, he has good clear, he's got good burst damage, he's got good self-peel, he's got good peel for his teammates, he's got good zoning control with his pillar, he's got pretty good late game damage because of his passive and his pillar. Like, Onher just sort of is the everyman. kind of does everything that a hunter does. Now, if you want maybe a little bit more kill potential in your lane, you could pick Cupid. If you want harder late game carry, you could pick Cooler or Xbalanque.
Yeah.
But Honor just like he kind of has everything right now, and Reels really showed us the depth of his kit. Now, I think there is a point where the Dignitas team comp could definitely overcome the Honor, especially in game 1, right? Like with Osiris, Hunbots, Isis, Ymir. There's so much lockdown, and that just sort of seems like we're going to put all these gods in front of Xbalanque, and Yungbei will kill everyone.
That was the hope, but it didn't. I mean, they didn't really get to that point in the game where they were doing enough damage. I mean, 30 minutes in, you'd expect a little bit more, but to be honest, the kills were extremely low for all of their team.
Definitely.
9 kills in total. They didn't have enough. I mean, 2 stacks on the Xbalanque passive, he wasn't doing as much. Reels was just destroying in those games. Not to mention that, but this was the game where Maniac just comes into a team fight, kills someone immediately, and I think that's the game where he throws his boulder and gets a double kill, right? By the Gold Fury.
That sounds like something Maniac would do.
Fantastic.
And what's so cool to watch, to think about these games is that it's actually sort of like you can see clear evidence of strategy coming out from Fnatic, right? Both games lasted about 30 minutes. They were about 72. Well, one game was 72 or 73k gold. One game was 77k gold. Dignitas had 59k and 55k, and it was 23 kills and 26 kills versus 9 and 10 kills. Like both games,
very similar in that regard.
Pretty much the same thing happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, Fnatic really killing it, looking strong. They are tied 2-1, so we'll see what happens going forward into the SPL. But definitely one of the strong contenders, and taking down Dignitas is good for sure.
I know next week they're going to be versing upcoming stars on Sunday.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if we had to do a quick prediction here, I know I'd probably be putting my money on Fnatic.
Yeah, upcoming stars is a team that has trouble, a lot of trouble, or has had a lot of trouble in this split. We saw it in their gaming on Sudden, which happened during the Week 3 SPL, and upcoming stars hasn't figured out really how to come together yet. They're just missing that something, and hopefully it's not the thirst effect, right? Like hopefully they're not like, well, we're losing, now we're in a bad mood, we're in a bad way, we're down on ourselves, so we're gonna keep losing, right? Like that's not what you want to happen. That's actually really good news.
I mean, on the opposite side, I mean, the similar team you'd have in NA would be Enemy Esports, and I don't think they have that thirst effect. The more I see them, the more they impress me. I'm not gonna lie. Like, who are they playing? I mean, they've done very well. They can't yet get the first win that they won in the SPL, but they're still trying their hearts out, and I like that.
Yeah, they're definitely starting to have a lot closer games, but there's still like issues that are coming through. Upcoming Stars was also the debut of Ataraxia's janky-ass Fatalis build.
Okay. I mean, we can't go away from Upcoming Stars without talking about that build.
Yeah, we can't. So let's talk about that a little bit. So what the build is it's Devourer's Gauntlets, then I believe he builds Heartseeker first. Heartseeker, Fatalis, Executioner, Rage Deathbringer. It's about 10 to 11... No, sorry. Yeah, 10 to 11% less damage than a standard crit build, like a triple crit or whatever. But basically, like the idea of the build's pretty simple: get a Fatalis, sacrifice a little bit of damage. And the question is, the obvious question is, like the reason you're building is because you want a Fatalis on a hunter, and so what does that really do, right? Like, well, maybe you don't have to get Sprint, so you could get, like, Heavenly Agility, or Combat Blink, or Aegis, or Achilles Spear, or
something that's
Horde
not
to
Sprint,
Gods, or, like, anything that isn't Sprint. You could get something else.
Aegis beads, who knows?
Yeah, exactly. So that's definitely there. It has a little bit of snowball potential, and it sort of plays in fights differently. But
I agree, yeah.
I'm still torn, and I've talked to Ataraxia about this. I'm still torn if he actually has, like... I mean, he's just a hipster, honestly. But if he actually has, like, enough reason to build the Fatalis. Like, is it really worth sacrificing 10% of your damage.
It's kind of like, I've always actually enjoyed using a Fatalis when I can, but it's never been, like, if I'm going to play in a ranked game, I'm not going to pick up a Fatalis. I mean, that's just never crossed my mind. If I'm going to play in a casual game, I like that Fatalis sometimes, in arenas.
Oh yeah, am I mad that this build exists? Yes, Fatalis in other builds is just silly.
It feels good in terms of you hit someone and you can just keep moving as much as you want. It's like an inbuilt sprint. But then why would you just not pick up sprint instead and go for more damage? Yeah, but then the sprint, has a cooldown, while Fatalis, as long as you're hitting guys and you're really good as a hunter, anyways, you should be hitting guys, you can move around them, you can backpedal, you can move forwards, and you can catch up.
Yeah, but then, we can take that argument, right?
Is that enough, though?
It's like the Fatalis continues working as long as you're hitting people and you're good, so you're hitting people. But then it's like, well, sprint lasts 6 seconds, and that's more than enough time to get 2 kills. So...
But in a team fight, I'm just playing devil's advocate. If in a team fight,
you can't focus targets or whatever.
You pop your beads. You can move from one side of the fight to another. You kill your targets. You keep going. I mean, yes, it gives you a little bit more positional advantage for a longer period of time, but you still lose out damage overall. And is that worth it? Is that worth the change?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my worry is pretty much what Bagel said in chat. I don't think the actual Fatalis passive gets utilized enough. Like, this build only makes sense if you're doing it for the Fatalis. Like, you need a good-ass reason to get the Fatalis. Maybe it's like, I want to play Artemis because I want Tusky from a team composition, and I want a combat blink. It's like, okay, well, with the Fatalis, you don't need sprint, so you can get combat blink. But...
Okay, so then another question I want to throw at you then is, when do you think this build is more viable in terms of which kind of hunters? Because I know people are talking about, like, okay, if you're a Shablanke, maybe the Fatalis build is a little bit better, but if you're an Onher, then maybe it's not. What do you think about that?
In terms of, like, I have no idea. In terms of, like, steroids and stuff, I don't think there's really a meaningful difference. I think it really just comes down to... Well, okay, so think about it. Let's think about what items the slots are replacing. So let's talk about standard triple crit, and then Fatalis versus boots. So we're assuming Fatalis is replacing Ninja Tabi. So we're trading out some power and some attack speed for a little bit more attack speed and these other stats. And then
the movement speed is exactly the same as long as you have Heartseeker and Fatalis. That's
right.
A straight 18% on both.
Well, I'm also really only talking about the damage stats, right? So it's really like less power, some attack speed for a little bit more attack speed. And then the Heartseeker is replacing a Malice, which, while one gives crit and power and the other gives just raw power, what they're both giving is, like, raw damage, right? They're giving the number... Yeah. They're increasing the number that you multiply into attack speed. They're increasing the amount of damage you hit for on average. So the Heartseeker Malice trade is kind of... Like, they're doing the same thing in the build. They're adding to your damage and the attack speed multiplies it. And because of that, because you have two items that are essentially doing the same, like, yeah, the Fatalis build is 10% more attack speed, but that's not enough to say, like, oh, it's better on these hunters than these hunters because of their steroids. There's no real interaction like that. It's just sort of like, is it good in the situation? And realistically, the answer is probably not. You should just build sprint, but there might be a situation in which, yes, this is useful. There's another thing to talk about, and this is the shit that's going to blow your mind. Because this is not what you would expect.
Alright.
You have one build that does more damage, right?
Yes.
And you have one build that offers a little bit of utility, sacrificing damage.
Yes.
Which build should be more expensive?
Okay, straight out
should
to me,
be more
we have
expensive.
one with damage, we have one with utility. You'd expect the one that gives you more damage to be more expensive.
Yeah. Now, what if I told you the build that has more damage is also a build where you buy 7 items, meaning you buy 6 items and you sell one and buy a 7th?
Okay.
It should be even more expensive, right? I mean, there's an extra item purchase.
You're getting a 7th item. That's a whole new item that costs, yeah.
No, it's cheaper, actually.
Even with 7 items, Krett?
Even with 7 items. Because boots are so cheap.
You've just blown my mind.
Yeah, it's actually kind of fucking... And so that's weird. And then the other thing to think about is just sort of like... This Fatalis build's slower. You're hitting your breakpoints, you're hitting the points that matter about 3 minutes after a standard build.
I mean, it's also riskier because as soon as you die, the Heartseeker stacks are now reset. Halving.
Yeah,
you die
exactly.
Again, it's going to get lower. You've got to bring those back up. Do you want to come back to team fights when you don't have full stacks? What's the damage versus the other hunter builds there when you don't have full Heartseeker stacks?
You lose about 10% of your DPS. So like on Neath, with the full Heartseeker or with the triple crit build, you do about 1180 DPS raw. With the Heartseeker fully stacked, you do about like 1080, and then without it stacked at all, you do about 10, so like 1,000.
Yeah.
At that point, it's like, yeah, you're really starting to do significantly less DPS. Now, the one thing that's actually, have you seen Barracuda's build?
Can you refresh
It's
me?
last item Aussie instead of a Malice or an Odysseus bow.
Okay,
that's
so
something
you're
that some people
skipping
are
out-
doing.
Okay.
It's lower damage for higher sustain. And it's really good in dueling, too. That build is actually lower DPS than the Heartseeker Fatalis build.
So that's third on the ranks of DPS of these three builds.
Yeah, well, kind of. Then there's, like, Odysseus bow, which is, like, if it's AoEing, it's more, but if it's not, it's less, and stuff gets a little bit hazy there.
Yeah.
But, so there is, like, in Season 2, there is a precedent for getting a build that's lower DPS and higher utility. I just don't think the utility of this build is something that people are using correctly yet, and I'm not sure there's, like, 100% great use for the utility.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're going to have to see is, again, which gods are going to be able to make the best use out of it, but which gods are you just going to want the pure damage. And in most cases, it's not which gods, it's just you want the more damage. Now I'm going to throw a curveball at you. What are your thoughts on Transcendence?
Oh, Transcendence is just ass. Alright, so when it comes to a hunter build, hunter builds have a very precarious balance of stats, right? You need enough crit chance for your crits to happen at a... Well, okay, no, let me restate that. You need enough physical power for your crits to hit hard, right?
Yes.
You need enough lifesteal to not die. You need enough pen to kill people that you want to kill, and you need enough move speed to not die.
Yes.
That stuff's straightforward. Then, you want crits, because crits are the best way to increase your auto attack DPS. And
Absolutely.
crit chance makes crit better, which is why 3 crit items is good. It's because, like, well, if critting for 850% of the time is good, it's even better to crit for 870% of the time.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a nice boost. And then attack speed's great because you do everything faster, so that's really nice. So, the problem with the Transcendence is it only does one thing. It's only raw power, and that means you have to make sacrifices elsewhere that hurt your build. So yeah, it is more raw physical power than Devo Gloves. And yeah, you could get an Aussie, but what you give up for the Aussie generally isn't worth it.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I can see that. I mean, you say it's, Transcendence is one of the most items that gives you the most power.
Oh yeah,
for
huge
physical,
power.
But that's just not worth it. Not even if you're bringing it from last item.
Not even last item, there's just no room for it, right? Because it's like, when you're talking about a full build, where like, okay, Devo, well you need that for lifesteal. Boots, you need it because boots. Executioner, you need it because penetration. Rage Deathbringer, no one's arguing that, so the last spot remaining is the Malice. And more crit is better than more power.
Yeah, fair enough. And then another thing that we haven't, in Season 1, we saw a lot more movements to Titan's Bane, but now it seems that Titan's Bane kind of has fallen off.
So that's funny.
Executioner.
Titan's Bane was bad the entire time, and nobody checked.
And nobody checked. No one knew that. But I mean, like,
nobody
hey,
knows.
It allows you to do more damage to the towers.
You do more damage to towers, that's cool, but we have a fire giant for that. The damage difference is just really big. And so, Mallet, right, because Titan's Bane, this part is sort of straightforward, right? Malice is a pure damage item, so your raw DPS before protections is naturally going to be a lot higher than if you have a Titan's Bane.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Titan's Bane is a penetration item, so the idea is that while your raw DPS is lower, the penetration allows more of your raw DPS to come through, and you have a higher value up against tankier targets with more protections, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what point Titan's Bane matches the DPS, a Titan's Bane build matches the DPS of a Malice build, in terms of enemy protections?
No.
How many physical power, or physical protections one has to have for Titan's Bane to do the same amount of damage as a Malice?
I have absolutely
Do you know what the protection cap is?
There's a protection cap? What? You're blowing my mind today, Krett.
Yeah, 350.
350.
And the protection value you need for their damage to equalize is 325.
325. Wow. Okay,
and then the
so you're probably
DPS
never
difference.
See that happen for the most part.
And the DPS difference when someone goes up to 350 protection, so the actual cap is 10.
10%?
No,
or
10.
just 10 DPS? Just 10 DPS.
10 DPS. At that point, they're reducing your damage by so much that the fact that there's a penetration difference doesn't matter because everything's just so low.
Okay, I see that.
Yeah, so it's like, well, it is a 5% damage difference, but you're doing so little damage that it's 10 DPS and nobody. Like, so Tensbane's just sort of bad. It's sort of been bad the entire time, and nobody really noticed because it's good at killing Phoenixes.
I mean, that's always cool, right? I mean,
yeah, that's nice.
What about that Crusher, right? That was the thing at one point.
I actually like the Crusher. It's just like, I feel like the Crusher is just sort of like, well, we're having trouble killing the Phoenixes, and I'm the jungler.
Yeah.
Right? And you're just like, well, I guess now if I'm Thor, I'm gonna auto-attack the thing. Sev Sork in chat asked, does that mean Obsidian Shard's crap too?
I did want to bring that up, actually.
That's actually not true.
We have Shard versus Spear.
Yeah, so Titan's Bane is crap because Executioner is better, and you should buy that, but... And you shouldn't buy both. Obsidian Shard, you shouldn't buy both, and Spear of the Magus is better, you should buy that. But if you're the wrong type of god, Spear is just bad. Like, if you're Hell, Spear of the Magus is bad, you should have an Obsidian Shard. If you're... Honestly, there aren't that many options.
If you're any magic god that can make use of the Obsidian Shard's passive, then
Spear
yeah,
passive.
Or, sorry, for the penetration, you know, if you can get those 2 stacks in.
Exactly. So if you're only hitting with, like, 1 or 2 abilities, like, if you're a Kukulkan that is not tornadoing anyone, you're just hitting people with your Howitzer ultimate, Obsidian Shard is better. Because Spear's not stacking on them. It's sort of an awkward spot, and it's, like, Spear's fantastic on Agni because any tick of damage applies it. So on Agni, like, we all know Meteor, Stun, and then, like, do stuff after it, like, whatever you want. You could dash in, drop 2 bombs, Flame Wave, auto attack, whatever. When you Meteor Stun, what happens is, the first thing is, you press the Meteor button, you press the Stun button, the Stun Cloud hits your target, the Meteor lands, and if it hits your target, or if it hits the Stun Cloud, it will pop the Stun Cloud, and then the Meteor hits the target. So, that's full stacks. Now, oftentimes when you're Meteor stunning, you only hit the Cloud and you don't hit the Meteor, but whatever, the point is that Agni will have the majority of his damage behind the Spear stacks. He also has Agni passive, which is there, but generally, and Agni passive will apply stacks, but generally Agni passive is applying after the Spear is already stacked. It's really, really good on Agni. It's good on... I mean, basically the list of Spear gods...
Any god with a dot, in a way.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to open up my mage list here, and we'll just go through them. So, Agni, Spear. Anubis, Spear. Ao Kuang, Demonic Grip. Aphrodite, Spear. Chunga, Spear, because you just keep attacking. Kronos and Freya, Demonic Grip. Habwa is sort of in that, like... He's on the fence. You could really go either, and it's fine, but Spear's probably better if you're not dying immediately. If you are dying immediately, Obsidian Shard.
Okay.
Hell, Obsidian Shard. Isis, on the fence again.
Yeah, because any 2 hits with a Wingos is going to count for the Spear, but are you going to be able to do that? Or are you going to stun ball first? Yeah, I can see that.
Janice is, like, on the fence, but probably Obsidian Shard.
I would say Shard for Janice, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I would choose.
Kukulkan... You could go either. It's like, if you're only hitting your ultimate, Obsidian Shard's better, but Tornadoes are probably doing stuff.
Might be using your Zephyr to set up the ultimate. Like, I would, yeah. Kukulkan, I can see Spear being a better item.
Nox, probably a Spear, just because you keep casting. Nuwa, I guess Obsidian Shard. Nuwa is weird, because he sort of has, like, 2 damage sources, right? You've got, like... your ult, which Obsidian Shard, obviously, and they've got your ground combo where it's like, well, I don't really need Pen because I have Clay Soldiers and they're OP.
I mean, I really doubt that's the case, but in fact, I had a question. With the Clay Soldiers, they will not apply a Spear.
They don't apply Spear, no.
And now what about a Vulcan turret attack?
Vulcan turret attacks don't apply Spear either, but they do take Obsidian Shard.
Okay.
So Vulcan, well, let's just keep going. Poseidon, Spear, Ra,
Absolutely.
Obsidian Shard, really.
Yep.
You're not really using the heal offensively. Scylla, Obsidian Shard. Vulcan, he's on the fence because his turret takes Obsidian Shard, but his abilities come off of cooldown rapidly enough that you can stack a Spear, so it's sort of like whatever. Zeus, kind of on the fence. I prefer Spear, and Jean-Qui definitely Spear.
Okay. Yeah, I see that. I was thinking about that Zeus one. Just like, yeah, I mean, most of the time, it's not going to count on your auto attacks, obviously, but you're going to get the Chain Lightning, the Detonate. I mean, the Detonate's going to apply before the second Spear pass stack, though. But then again, if you have your ultimate going off, that's going to be multiple strikes. I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence with that myself.
For who?
For Zeus?
Yeah, it's sort of like weird, right? Because if you're just like, and then like Demonic Grip is in there somewhere. And it's like, well, probably not, but I guess if they're just letting me auto-attack, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, then that begs the question, would you prefer an auto-attack Zeus build, or just a straight-out damage Zeus build
I don't know,
with
man.
Fatalis
Demonic
on either
Grip's
side?
really good on him.
Demonic
But then
Grip
you
is
die.
really good, but...
It's like Demonic Grip is good in theory, and then in practice you're never auto-attacking enough for it to be good, but it's so good in theory that you sort of want to make it work somehow.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, would you just pick up the Fatalis on Zeus either side? I know I would.
No, probably not.
No? But I mean, you can catch up and get those auto attacks to get those detonates.
Yeah.
Oh, it just feels so good, Krett. You know you want it. You know you want Fatalis.
I do go sprint on Zeus sometimes. And
Okay.
there you go, back full circle. Why buy a Fatalis when you can get sprint?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's sort of like Obsidian Shard, which is much better than Spain, but so Season 2 is weird, because Season 1, we actually sort of had interesting hunter builds, right? Like, there was a standard build that turned out to be bad, oops. And then there was, like, the Unicorn build, and then there was this, like, Zappacorn, Barracorn, depending on who you ask, build. And then there's, like, this other build that I published right at the end, where it's like, hey, just get triple crit, because that's OP, and also have a chin size.
Surprise.
Because that's OP. And Season 2 is just sort of like... I guess Odysseus bow is a good item.
This Odysseus, this Itchable. I mean, you're always going to be picking up Itchable early, it seems.
Yeah, but there's no like significant variation in the hunter build. Kind of depressing, right?
I mean, every single one of those builds are going to get crit. I mean, the question before in Season 1 was like, do I want to go crit or do I want to go chin size for the percentage damage? Now chin size is dead for hunters, it seems.
Chin size is dead for basically everybody. Because
yeah,
it's
there's like
just sort of like
5 gods to get it now on.
Yeah, you got like Kali and like Osiris and maybe Arachne sometimes. And like it still feels good on those gods, but you're just like, well, if I'm getting multiple damage items, I should probably just have crit. And if I'm not getting multiple damage, and like just chins doesn't feel like enough anymore, right? Like it used to be like your chalk, get chin size, then build full defense because you've got enough damage, homie. Chin size will carry you. In Season 2, it's just sort of like, well, it does a little bit more damage, but I wish I had another damage item. And then you buy one and you're like, I should have had crit. Or something else.
I could see chin size on Nemesis as well, Remedies.
Chins on Nemesis is kind of like... It's just sort of like, are you building 3 damage items? Because if so, you should have crit.
Yeah, true. I would still want crit, I guess. But I mean, then, I was also thinking about, for example, do you remember what Who Use Passive is?
Yeah, Who Use Passive is the, when you get crit, you can't get crit again for 3.
But, I mean, people were just like, oh, Hu Yi, I guess I'll buy Chin Size against him. I don't think anyone has ever thought to buy Chin Size instead of crit against Hu Yi.
Right, because Chin Size is bad now.
Exactly.
And then you're just sort of like,
I'm still gonna get crit.
Well, I guess if Hu Yi isn't critable, I'll just attack this other guy and then go back to killing him. He doesn't do it.
And at the same time, what if you're not even gonna get crits on him late game?
Yeah.
If you get 1 crit and it's auto attack him 3 or 4 more times, he's probably dead anyways.
Well, and as Ependary said in chat, Oboe is way better than Chins. Like, yeah, Oboe is amazing. If it fully bounces, it's like basically the best item in the game in terms of damage for a single slot. Like, it's really good. And like having more of them on a team is really good as well. So there's just sort of no room for Chins. But
yeah, going back to that, then what happened to the Hunter builds? But it seems like it's pretty much all crit now. And
well, it's all crit, and then it's sort of like, yeah, you could buy an Oboe if you really want to. And it's like,
yeah,
that's
so
fine.
the variation in Hunter builds is pretty much the last item.
It's the last
Like,
item.
It's one item, basically.
It's the last item. It's occasionally, sometimes someone will skip an Ikavol, and that's it.
And that's it. Yeah.
And like
basically a one item difference for all.
Technically,
hunters.
maybe you could go Death Soul if you really wanted to. If you really wanted to, you probably could. But it's Bluestone's better.
I haven't even thought about Death Souls on hunters anymore. Just like, oh yeah, Bluestone pendant. That's just the new normal.
Yeah. I mean, I think Death Soul's just like, it's not good and you shouldn't buy it. But I think it does enough that if Bluestone didn't exist, people would buy Death Soul and hunters wouldn't
wouldn't change that much, yeah.
Yeah,
they'd
like
be
you'd
a little bit more reserved. You don't have as much mana.
Exactly, you'd conserve your mana more, but like Hunter versus Hunter would probably be fine with no blues.
Yeah,
Death Soul. Sort of depressing, honestly. Anyway, let's jump into North American SPL. And this week we had some interesting matches. Denial versus Enemy Esports. So Enemy Esports is continuing to have trouble. They have made a roster change. Walrus is no longer in play, and now it's Mr. Makey in the support role, who honestly I think is pretty good.
Oh, Mr. Makey has always been a great player. I mean, we saw him even in Season 1. When everyone was at the NA Regionals, Mr. Makey was like, I'm grinding. I'm at Masters. I'm top 1 of Masters. When everyone comes back, he didn't drop off. I mean, that was the question. It's like, is he going to just drop off now that all the pro players are back? No. He was still with them. He still played. In fact, I'm pretty sure he subbed for COG in one of the casual tournaments or something.
Yeah,
he
probably
was there, and he's doing fantastic. Not only that, I mean, he's not even a support player. I'm pretty sure he started out in the solo lane.
He's new to the role.
Yeah, so he's taken on the support, and he's taken on it extremely well. I mean, when we talk about Enemy Esports, there's a couple names that come to mind. For example, DM Brandon loves talking about Soulshiner and about how he will help win the game, or he will make the game win. I love talking about Bronx Bomber because I think he's absolutely fantastic, and we don't see enough of him. Of course, Awesome to the Max is doing great, kind of, sometimes. And then there's the infamous... I'm letting you to that.
Talkity?
Yeah.
Yeah, Talkity. I like Austin and the Max. I like these players, even Talkity kind of. But
yeah, I was watching a couple of games. He's done some really great plays. In fact, I know I chose him for one of the top 5 plays at some point. He did a really good Fire Giant defense with Agni. I've seen some really good Krakens. He's kind of, hit or miss. Mostly miss.
Yeah. I think what it is like Enemy Esports is a team that if they didn't make it into the SPL this season, played through the Challenger Cup, and made it in next season, I think we'd see a lot more from them. But that's sort of because the Challenger Cup can be a growing action for a team, because you're winning and you're getting that practice, and at least in our case on Eager, you have a great opportunity to scrim SPL teams without having to compete against them.
True.
And, like, being on the losing side of the SPL can be really bad for a team. It can cause a lot of chaos and strife, and it's not fun losing.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't want this team to break up, because it's got some really strong players, but at the same time, like, it doesn't feel fully formed, right? Like, Soulshiner is a player that sort of comes in and out of the competitive scene because he has real-life obligations. Austin Max is a good player, but he needs to be, like, on the right team to grow.
Okay.
Talkity's just fucking weird. Bronx Bombers is a blooming player. Like he needs to be on the right team and given time to grow and blossom into a beautiful ADC flower. And Mr. Makey's new to the role.
Yeah.
But what?
And I'm interested to see myself if Makey, actually enjoys being the support. You know what I mean? Because being a support is, it's a frame of mind. For example, I'm a mid laner. I enjoy being a mid laner. I could do solo lane things, and I like ADCing. But if I had to be a support, I'm not entirely sure if I'd ever want to stay a support. So Makey being in the support lane, as usual, being a solo laner, I'm not sure if he's just filling in. He wants to be on an SPL team, or if he wants to actually, stay a support laner.
Yeah. I don't know. I just hope we see more from this team, but I don't think this is where these players will end up if they stay in the Pro League. Right? Like, I think they're going to shuffle around, end up on different teams, and I feel like you could get some good trades out of this team. Like, Soulshiner could be a good jungler for a team that wants to replace their jungler, or Awesome Max could be a good solo laner, Bronx Bombers could be a good ADC, and that would be really cool. for some of their teams. Denial, on the other hand, is also in a weird spot. I believe they're 2-1 right now.
Denial are in D2-1.
Yeah, and so they've beaten Enemy, which is like, okay. They've beaten TSM, which is like A+, good job, that's pretty impressive. Yeah. And then they lost to AFK, who lost to TSM, and then you're sort of like, huh? Right?
Yeah, that's actually what I was looking at before. In fact, I was talking to the members of AFK, I think it was Melior Morior at the time, rip Melior Morior. But I was saying how, okay, so C9,
yeah,
what did they do against TSM?
C9 against TSM? That was where Omega and Divios AFK'd in the solo lane for 30 minutes.
Yeah, was that a 2-0?
Except one game where Divios played Hades. No, that was 2-1. That was 2-1. Yeah.
And then Denial versus TSM. And then Denial versus AFK, where AFK generally beats Denial. And then finally we like, okay, so all those people, all those teams have taken one game off of each other. And then, but there's AFK. There's this, oh look.
Right, like AFK's beaten Denial. AFK's beaten Denial, and Denial beaten TSM, so you're like, well, if they've beaten Denial, Denial's beaten TSM, and TSM has beaten C9, and it's like, yeah, they should beat TSM, and then they're probably better than C9. Yeah. But they didn't. And
but
Snoopy played AMC. And it was weird. And Divios plays Guardian solo, apparently.
He played the Athena solo. He played the Hades. Or in the second game, he played the Sobek, the solo back.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think in that game, I favored the Bush's Poseidon because he just did so much work. I think he was the MVP that game when we were creating the clip. But at the same time, if I went back into it, Divio set him up so much. He did a lot of work. You see a jungle Athena doing a lot, setting up the team, doing a lot of damage. But from the solo lane, Divios came in. I know he got the first blood as well, but he was setting up a lot of kills.
I think what it comes down to is teams, well, at least from that perspective, teams are ready and prepared to deal with one Guardian setting up for their mage, but then you throw a second Guardian in, and they're like, shit, I used my beats the last time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they had the Han bots. Obviously, you got Dagars there using his ultimate, Fear No Evil, dispersing. You want to have your beats for that, right? But then, wait, no, you've got Sylvanas. You've got the Wrath of Terror, or was that Jebs? I can't remember. He's got the AoE ultimate. I don't want to get stuck in that. I don't want to be taking that, so I'm going to use my beats for that. No, wait. Shit, there's an Athena. The ton. I guess I'm going to have Magi's beats and Aegis. I mean, that's just not going to work out.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just rough. And then there was also Snoopy running around on Amaz and Cobb, who, like... he got away with playing Amaz and Cobb. He died once. It's not supposed to happen.
111. Yep, he was shredding.
Though that one kill, he kind of got destroyed. And that's just sort of like... I think in part, AFK misplayed against him. Like, they didn't give him the focus they needed to. And maybe a map pressure thing as well. But overall, it just felt like TSM had a plan against AFK. They executed their plan. And in part, I want to say it's because TSM, in their first 2 games, looked rocky and, like, don't really know what to expect from this team. Whereas AFK in their previous games looked solid, and they showed everyone exactly what they do. So TSM were able to look at their games and be like, this is how AFK plays, we'll play against it. Whereas AFK looked at TSM and they're like, they probably won't continue to play like this.
Yeah, I feel like AFK kind of came into those games a little bit too cocky. And remember, I used to coach these guys. I love these guys, but they were...
So that means it's okay to BM them.
No, I mean, that's not... Well, it means that I'm being critical. It's not that, it's not that I'm being biased. I'm allowed to say...
So what you're saying is Allied sucks too?
No, not at all. I love Allied. But the lane together went 2-8 the first game, and 1-14 the second.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah, it's a problem. 1-14.
Yeah. Did you just look at those stats? Like, I can just envision you. I mean, I can see you.
It had to sink in a little bit.
Just take off your glasses. Just, fuck. 1-14.
Yeah, that's not supposed to happen. And...
yeah.
That was rough. Guardian solos... I honestly think, like, there were people who were really looking forward to the solo lane matchup. Cyclone and, Divios, right?
Yep. I remember people in chat were just like, guys, we don't want the camera anywhere else. just put it in the solo lane.
Right.
All we want to see is Devios for I mean, if that was that had happened, they'd be bored as hell. But
Devios played Guardians, and like it wasn't that interesting. Like, I think Devios played well those games. I think he fucking killed it. He did exactly what he needed to do. He played his matchup perfectly. But Guardians in the solo lane are fucking boring to watch, and not that much happens. Like, it's like Devios is getting ganked, but he's a Guardian, so he doesn't die. Devios is getting ganked, but he's a Guardian, so he doesn't die. And then he waits 5 seconds, and then he taunts. Like,
in the end, what he needed to do, and what everyone kind of needs to do against Cyclone Spin, is Cyclone Spin plays extremely aggressive solo laners. He played Kali, he played Hunbats, both, again, assassins you'd kind of see in the jungle more than the solo lane. And what he does is he tries to shit on you. He tries to get in your face and kill you repeatedly. What did Devious do? He didn't face that. He didn't do something similar. He went a Guardian. He didn't die in the solo lane. If you don't die against Cyclone Spin's gonna have to find things elsewhere, and elsewhere was being dealt with. So Devios was able to do exactly what he needed to do, and then just provide so much utility in everywhere else. That was game. There was nothing else they could do against that.
That was the game. Let's take a look at the last game for the week, which is Cloud9 versus COG. It's a 2-0. That's not too surprising. As C9 former World Championships, you would expect them to beat their ex-organization, who are a relatively newer team to the SPL. The games went to around 40 minutes, and it was a little bit slow-paced for COG, or for C9. This is confusing, but I think it suited them, and I think they just played to their strengths. Like, Enster set up for stealth, and like spoon-fed him gold and kills, and then stealth got really big, and he was like, "Hey, I'm a big girl now," and then he still ulted people, and Omega went 10-3-8 because he was like, you know what? Against TSM, I didn't show you how good I am. So against COG, I'm gonna show you all how good I am. And he just sort of fucked first game, and then second game he had Bakasura, and he sort of fucked. And, like,
Omega was 10-3-8 the first game as Hercules. He was everywhere. I mean, everyone played phenomenally. I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, I love all the members of the current COG.
I was pheasantly surprised.
Oh, really? Okay, now I'm hungry. But yeah, so they did really well, and people kind of expected a duplicate, from TSM and AFK. They kind of expected, it's going to be 20-minute games. After they, of course, saw those games. I mean, no one expected that at first. And they're like, okay, these are going to be easy games. 40-minute games. The longer kind of games in the SPL go up to that match. And if you look at the very beginning, I think COG were winning as well. They were doing well. They were matching, and then they kind of fell off a little bit later in the game when C9 started reaching their momentum. Hercules getting online, Scylla getting online, and of course the players themselves doing extremely well. So I was very surprised with these guys and how well they did. And I think they're going to be setting out to be a fantastic team.
I'm really excited for the future of Cognitive Gaming. Like, once again, I don't know if they'll stay with this lineup, but Damien Tate's a good player. He's been in the competitive scene for a long-ass time. You, more than other people, I think, would be familiar with him, considering the competitive team that you used to be on and, like, scrimming against him and stuff. Herwin's a great player who didn't get his chance in SPL Season 1. Jigs has always been really good. Mask is a player with a reputation, but he's also a pretty good player. And
I love that.
Meerkat...
That's the most neutral way. He's a player, and he's got a reputation. Let's move on.
Yeah, that's the political way to say it.
I like it.
And then there's Meerkat, who's like a pretty good solo laner, and I think all of these players could grow and become really good. They just need to sort of figure things out, because there's some issues happening later on in the game. Maybe shot calling, team composition, whatever. But they're a good team. They probably... Like, they're the sort of team where even if they get dropped down to the relegations, they probably won't get eliminated.
I agree. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, NASPL is shaping up to be extremely interesting. Yeah. Anyone can go to the regionals now or to the SWC, and all these teams can do fantastic. I mean, even Enemy Esports, they beat out Eager to get into the SPLs. Who knows if that can happen again? We're all waiting to see. COG, they can
definitely totally can't.
They totally no, of course. No, I mean,
right.
Harry, the coach, Eager, is super fantastic, and he's carrying the team to victory.
Really pretty.
Yeah, really pretty, super handsome, and took me out to dinner once. But
yeah, you drink that milk.
I was slurping that stuff up, and then there's COG, who are, I think they need to stick together. I think they need to build up more communication. I mean, they haven't been together for that long. They've not been, when COG were COG, when they won the SWC, they were together for what, a year, 2 years? It's been a while. This new COG, they need to, I'm not saying they need a year to do that.
It
but
took
time.
Cloud9 4 lands to win one. And it happened to be Worlds.
So the new COG needs to stick together, build a synergy if that's what they want. I'm not sure if there's going to be roster changes or not. They're playing fantastic. They just need to keep that up and just build momentum, and stick together.
I agree. So overall, like, looking at the SPL, I think we're still waiting for C9 to have their really big performance. And I think that's what we're going to see up against in an eventual game against AFK. Like, I think that's the capstone to the league. That's really what it's all about. Because AFK is in a team that's in an awkward position, right? Like, there's 6 teams right now. You have to be top 2 to go to the LAN event. And if you just think about the league, it's like, okay, Cloud9, TSM, well, they'll probably be the top 2 because they were both at Worlds. And it's like, well, AFK and Denial are pretty good. They probably won't get relegated. COG and Enemy, they could get relegated. But, like, AFK is the team, and potentially Denial as well, are the 2 teams where it's like, maybe they could be top 2. Maybe they could make it to LAN. They just need to get, like, that final game that can get them there. For AFK, it's up against Cloud9. That's a difficult task. It's a team that they've always had trouble with. But... and that's the game to watch. Is the AFK hype real, or is it not? Like, or are they just good at stomping the teams that are worse than them, but they can't play up at all?
Unfortunately, that's not going to be next week. That's going to be the week after. For week 5, we will see the coveted C9 versus AFK.
I can't wait. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Excited.
Super
how excited I am.
I know. I can tell
right
right now.
So one last little soapbox. This has been teased at by Hi-Rez. Expanding the league from 6 teams to 8 teams. It's a difficult decision because what if the breadth of skill isn't there, right? Like, what if you have an 8-team league and 3 of them suck?
I mean, what's been interesting is that a lot of these games during the SPLs each week have been 2-0s. I'm not talking about the leaderboard standings as they are now. I'm talking about the games. They don't yet usually go to a third game. I think 80% of the games have been 2-0s. I wouldn't call them stomps because, of course, like we said with C9 and COG, it was a 40-minute game each time. But they weren't stomps. So they've been 2-0s. Now, teams have taken on other teams. Like we said with NA, a lot of teams have taken off one match off of the other. And now I think challenges a little bit more better than I do. What are the 2 top teams? Obviously, we have Eager. What are the 2 ones past
Eager and Legion are the top 2.
I know there's Nomad as well, I believe. There's
Nomad 2 weeks in a row has been eliminated by High Five, which is
Hi-Fi. So there's Hi-Fi,
which is El Chapo and El Brochasho's team. They're in 4th place, and then Royals, which is Air Cougar and Mytheria, are in 3rd place.
And I know there was Hadasat Day, who then became King's Landing.
That is, those are Royals. King's Landing, but their clan tag is Royal. So that's how I remember them.
So there's a lot of good teams there. Now, whether the bottom of those teams, like, for example, if I'm going to bring in Eager, I'm going to say that, yes, immediately they can obviously take on any of the teams in the SPL right now. They have in the previous, and they can do so before. Right. Now, I'm looking at the other teams. Royals, absolutely, their coach, fantastic. Now, if we look at the lower teams, will they be able to do the same? If we face Royals against C9, what would happen? So an 8-team, I think will be interesting. I know that there will still be a lot of 2-0s, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, it's
how
like
2-0s face out.
I think what it is it's fine to have a spectrum, right? It's fine to have like your top team up here, and then like gradually you have your bottom team, but it's even, like you can track it, so it's like the 3rd place team is a little better than the 4th place team, who's a little bit better than the 5th place team, and when you look at 8-1, it's a big jump, but they're still both good. And I think what you don't want is a disconnect. You don't want to have like top 6, bottom 2. You don't want to be like, well, at the bottom of the league, there are these 2 teams that are worthless and can't do anything, because that's a bad viewership experience. It sucks for the players. It can hurt their career. It can hurt their confidence. Like, it's just not fun.
So we have the top 6 teams right now. Do you say there's any sort of disconnect? Right now is the top 6 in the SPL?
In North America?
Yeah.
I think there is a disconnect either above COG. It's either above or below COG, and that's sort of hard to say. But like, it's around that area. I think enemy is definitely cut off. Okay. And it's not a huge disconnect, but it's there. Like, you can see it. There. So and then COG is like closer, but maybe still cut off. So we're in Europe, with that. And then in Europe, I think it's kind of similar. Like, there's sort of Upcoming Stars is like cut off, and then it's like, well, what about London Conspiracy? What about maybe even Titan? Like, both those teams are cut off a little bit.
A little bit. Okay, so we're on the fence with that. I mean, wow, I just said that 3 times in a row. I'm more familiar with the NA scene. So if we say there's a disconnect in between COG and enemy, we bring in the next 3. So we have 5. We have the top 5 there if we disconnect enemy. We bring in the next 3 from the challenge.
And the important thing that I want to mention is, like, when we're talking about a disconnect, it's that's just sort of like my observation, and I hope I am wrong. Like, I don't want there to be a disconnect. I want every team to be good, but just looking at the league the way I see it, like, there is a disconnect in my opinion, and it's around the area of COG, depending on what happens. The other thing to mention is, like, a team can... There are different kinds of 2-0s. Like, there are stomps, which we honestly haven't had really like, not really happen in the SPL. We haven't seen, like, a real stomp where it's like, 15 minutes in, they're at our Phoenix. Yeah. That's... that we haven't seen. But... Yeah, I don't really want the disconnect to be there at all, and in A, I would argue that it's around the area of COG, maybe above, maybe.
Okay, so then I want to bring up the question, if we have some challenger teams, I can obviously see, you know, we have the 6th place enemy. If we bring in Eager, I'm obviously assuming they're going to beat enemy esports the next time around. If we bring in Hi-5, where do you think Hi-5 or Legion would face against these SPL teams?
Well, to talk about that, I mean, are we talking about Eager? Because that makes things difficult, right? Because that's like a Challenger Cup team that, hate to say it, deserved to be in the Challenger Cup considering the way they played in qualifiers, but like now looking at the Challenger Cup seems to be outperforming that. Whereas, so
that's why I want to talk about.
I think they're hard to place, and let's just shelve them.
Yeah,
it's hard to say where Hi-5 would place against the lower SPL teams, right? Because, like, Hi-5, it's weird. So, at least in my experience of watching their games, Eager has had some pretty rough losses to Nomad. Hi-5 has beaten out Nomad 2 weeks in a row, and then they get to us, and we kill them dead in, like, 20 minutes. Interesting. Like, just kill them dead. Okay. Dead. And... So it's weird. It's hard to place. Maybe we're just good at against them and bad at against Nomad, and that's skewing some stuff. But either way, I want to say they're within reach of enemy, but I don't know if they're on the same level.
So you really think there'd be a good rivalry between enemy, Hi-5, and Legion? Like, you think they're in the same place? So what I'm trying to judge is whether there'd still be a disconnect in between COG and Eager. So we're going to put Eager as the top 6 there. And then the next 3, enemy, Legion, and Hi-5. In which case, if we do have 8 teams...
I think there could
still be a disconnect around the bottom.
I think there could still be a disconnect in North America. In Europe, it starts to even out a little bit, right? Where you've got, like, Spicy Waffles, and you've got Panthera, you've got Elo Fishers and Pointless. Like teams in Europe are looking a little bit more on the same level in the Challengers Cup team, though Panthera is a very, very strong team, and probably would be taking 5th or 6th place in the SPL, if not higher. It's hard to say, really, would an 8-team SPL right now be balanced. But, that said, we have to account for the fact that the Challenger Cup is a period of growth, right? Like, teams who are doing well are winning, you're in a good mood, like... And I think when you go into the summer split with 8 teams, the Challenger Cup teams could look a lot better, and we might get that smooth spectrum, which is really what we want. And honestly, even if we get it in just one region, that's fine. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be, like, you don't want a team to be in the SPL and go 1-19.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. But we know with the top 8, we have that spectrum, like you said. Whether some of the bottom teams will be able to take games off some of the top teams, maybe not. But if they can take some games off the teams close to them, then they'll be okay.
Exactly.
And they'll get the practice. In the end, that's the big thing, is that, let's say, High Five and Legion, they're not going to get any practice right now against any of the SPL teams. If they can reach the SPL level, yes, then forcibly they will have practice.
I don't know about that. I mean, scrims exist. Like, Eager scrims AFK, that's no secret.
Nope, that's true. And do you know who enemy scrims?
No idea.
Yeah, so maybe it's one of the other top.
But like, also, what about Denial? Is Denial scrimming COG? They're probably scrimming. So I don't know who enemy is scrimming.
Yeah.
Question.
So yeah, it's good to see the top tier Challenger Cup teams get a little bit more practice, and more practice will be the case if we have a 8-man standing.
Well, and so I think the other thing to talk about when we're talking about this is we have this weird occurrence in both SPLs. We've got a team on the bottom, Enemy and Upcoming Stars, and you've got a team in the Challenger Cup that's looking very dominant, Eager and Panthera. In both cases, I think it begs the question, which I will not answer, of is that team at the top of the Challenger Cup a team that would do better in that SPL slot?
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe not. Who's C9 scrimming? Divios, I'm pretty sure Anister's just playing Pokemon with Boosh, and that's their scrim. But anyway, so like whether or not those Challenger Cup teams would do better in the 6th spot, like I don't want to comment on.
Okay.
But what's more interesting is like, was the route there the way it needed to be? Like, were qualifiers actually picking the best team suited for the SPL? Because in both regions you had a 3-way tie. In both regions some fucked up shit happened where Polyjuice, a team that is now defunct, has disbanded, took Legion to a 50-minute game and eventually run with a duo lane Fenrir and a solo lane Ull. And they beat Legion and forced the 3-way tie in which COG beat Legion and Polyjuice lost to both teams. Like, that was weird. And it got well, Busters got into the SPL, but it then also got COG into the SPL. And then it's like, okay, well, on the other side of the brackets, or on the other side of across the pond, you have a 3-way tie where, like, Upcoming Stars gets in, and I believe it was Spicy Waffles and Pointless didn't get in. And then, like, there's Panthera, who lost to London Conspiracy. They lost to London Conspiracy, and that's why they're not in the SPL. And it's like, well, maybe this group was stronger, maybe this group was. Like, maybe it's something to do with the qualifiers, maybe it was just happen chance. I don't know. Either way,
yeah, but I mean, that was a spring 1 split. We can, relegate those teams. It's all about the summer split coming up, and that's, we're going to see the top 8 teams. So, and that's probably going to be undoubtedly the case.
Yeah, I don't know, like, I'm not saying that COG didn't deserve to be in the SPL, it's more that, like, it's like there's this weird stuff happens on one group, where a team gets in, and it's like, yeah, that's the team that, like, it seems like this makes sense for them to come into the group, and then in the other group you look, and you're like, but there's this really good team in the Challenger Cup, why are they there? That's a little weird.
But then they won't be there, hopefully, come the wild cards.
Totally. So it's just sort of like, well, if it's a little weird, we have another spring or another split that's coming out very soon, and then they'll play in that, and it'll be fine. And honestly, I think that's okay. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
The thing about this situation with these different splits in the SPL is it's something that you want to keep rolling, right? You want to be like, okay, we just finished Season 1, let's go into Season 2, these 2 teams come from Worlds, and then, like you want to have teams carry over in the right sort of way, where it's like fair and balanced, but the teams that did well in the last split carry over to the new split, and that seems to be the plan going from the spring split to the summer split. Would have maybe been done better, or maybe, like, what just happened with the qualifiers was weird, but
I mean, you can just call the spring 1 split the qualifiers. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
That's
what
I mean,
it feels
as
like, Edmund Derry said, Panthera was top 3 EU and didn't get in. Like,
yeah.
Well, they lost in the qualifiers. Like, them not getting in isn't unfair. Like, it's like, you lost.
Yeah, exactly.
But
it's
at the same time, it's still kind of fucking weird.
Yeah. I mean, I can see what you're saying, Mirko. We honestly needed 8 teams to begin with, but then the first split would have taken a lot longer, which would have detracted
also,
from the second
even then,
splits
Eager wouldn't have gotten in, and or Yeah, Eager wouldn't have gotten in, and you'd still have the same situation in NA, or like Eager. It would be weird. Like the potential's still there, so the qualifiers just were weird for whatever reason, and maybe that's a tournament organizing thing. But honestly, I just sort of think it's the way it played out. Like it just happened to end up that way. Things just happened to be weird for whatever reason coming through the qualifiers.
Yeah, agreed. But I mean, all I can say is that things are looking a lot nicer now than they obviously were in Season 1. The reason why I say that is because there's a lot more teams that are competitive in Season 2, and obviously that's just a growth thing as well. And the next split is going to be more fantastic than this split, of course. It's going to be longer,
and it's also
about 3 to 5 weeks.
It's also important to mention that, like, qualifiers happened when we were new to Season 2, and now that things are starting to settle a little bit, settle in some ways, and people are pushing the envelopes in other ways, like Divios and his stupid Guardians in the solo lane.
Yeah.
Like, Summer Split is shaping up to be a lot more competitive, not only because it's gonna have more, because it'll have more teams, and because, like, the Challenger Cup has happened, and we've had one split already, but because the teams know the meta more. So you're not coming in blind, you're not coming in guessing. And that's really cool.
And when we came into the qualifiers anyways, how long was the PTS out for? I don't think people were really scrimming on it anyways. So now people are a lot more comfortable with what you can say is a new meta, with the new items that are come out, with the new people in the different lanes. And teams have gotten their chance to grow as well. And their roster changes and their lane swaps. So I think Split 1 did what Split 1 needed to do. And now
exactly.
Split 2, obviously, in 2 weeks. And that's going to be where I think it's going to be a lot more interesting.
Yeah, and as Sulin Smite said, Hi-Rez is erring on the side of caution. Like, being cautious on SPL growth is good, because you want to maintain the legitimacy of the scene. You don't want a pro league where it's like, everyone can join, and it's not competitive. And here we see Cloud9 taking on My Grandmother and her 4 friends. My Grandmother and her Bridge Club. That's a good name for a team. My Grandmother and her Bridge Club.
Right. We're making
anyway. Yeah, any last words before we get out of here? Where can the wonderful people find you, my friend?
Oh, we're wrapping up. Guys,
wrapping up.
My name is ClumzyDeath. You can find me on Twitter at Hi-Rez ClumzyD. That's right, I am actually part of Hi-Rez. I work in production. So Hi-Rez ClumzyD on Production Boys. Hi-Rez ClumzyD on Twitter, and on Twitch.tv you can catch me at /ClumzyD. Both of those with the Z.
Alright, why did your parents choose to name you ClumzyDeath? Never mind, I'll find out later, guys. You can find me on Twitter, twitter.com/EGRKrett, twitch.tv, well, you're right here, drop a follow down below. I've got a YouTube, I've got an AMA, fuck it, y'all know this. Thanks for coming out, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you next time. Peace!
Peace!